Welcome back, friends. It's been a while since I talked about a deck that isn't Warriors, I know. But today we're going to talk about Mono Fire. Whether you're a new player looking into what deck to play, or maybe an existing player who just hasn't messed with Mono Fire before, let's talk all about how to get started with the deck, all the ins and outs, all sorts of things. So before we get into specific decks and what cards we're playing and how they work, let's just kind of talk about the game plan. What is the goal here with Mono Fire? When you're playing this deck, let's break it down into kind of steps. Your first step when playing Mono Fire is to build out your backups. You ideally want to get to 4 and eventually 5 backups in the deck. Getting to 5 backups leads you to what is essentially your win con, which is Limit Break Montleonis. So Limit Break Montleonis here is a card that states when Mont enters the field, you can choose a fire forward of cost 5 or less and a fire forward of cost 3 or less. If you have 5 or more fire backups, play them onto the field. They gain haste, and then you have to put one of your backups into the break zone. So this is why you want to be getting to 5 backups. Your payoff is Montleonis and being able to play 2 things that both can get really powerful entry abilities and get to attack because they get haste, which is a really powerful play. Now, beyond your Montleonis, which is again, that's your big move that sometimes is just I'm playing Montleonis to either clear a board or win the game. When you're just going through your turn to turn cards, one of your other big game pieces is 5 cost Terra. Now, this card may on the surface read okay, it's a 5 cost. Sometimes when you first are learning modifier, you're like, "Do I really wanna pay 5 CP to put on a 5K just to get a summon back?" You do 100% of the time. You always want to. This card, the more you play it, the more you realize this is the backbone of the deck. Um, Terra can recur Amaterasus, which just, you know, people hate when you play 3 of that card. Now imagine you just get to play 6, 8 Amats. You just can Amat everything they ever do. You can Amat something and then Terra and then add that Amat back. And then if they attack, you block with the Terra and you add Amat back again. And you can just you love Amat, play it 8 times a game. You're allowed to. Um, and we can go into again specific card combos with Terra, but you are a reactionary deck. You are a slow deck. It is kind of a play style that takes some getting used to. It can feel very stressful. You are a slow deck. You are building your backups, and you are almost reacting to what your opponent is doing. You are holding these powerful summons to be able to hit what they're doing, stop them from their doing, and basically you're saying, "I'm gonna pay 2 for something to remove something that you paid 4 for," right? And eventually, by that math, you're up 2 CP because you paid 2 less for something than they did. And you just 2 CP at a time. Every turn, you're eventually slowly over time just amassing resources while your opponent is losing resources. And eventually, when they're just completely running out of resources, you can just swarm the board with your Montleonis and swing the game. So, just kind of your overall game plan. You are playing very slowly. You are trying to build up your backups, get to 5, control the board very slowly and methodically over time, and then eventually just build out your resources so that you're just unsurmountable and just win the game from there. Simple, right? Now, let's talk about the different variants of the decks out there. And when we get into the variants, we can talk about what makes certain cards good, what kind of combos exist with those cards. All right, so the first list we're going to talk about here is kind of the current popular flavor of the week. It is Mono Fire using Warriors. The key piece here is having Tyvis. Tyvis is, I mean, if you've been playing the game, you know this guy. He's pretty much in every deck in existence now. This card's just good. It's just a good engine piece. And you're utilizing Tyvis to be able to play cards like Axstar and Furion, these cards you wouldn't normally be able to cast in a Mono Fire shell. Tyvis allows you to play them. Tyvis also allows you to be able to do things like search a backup in Naji or Red 13. And he also allows you to free play the Red 13 off of his ability, allowing you to kind of extend yourself further. Again, name of the game, building out backups. So you can start the game with, Elwyn and search Tyvis, and then play Tyvis and search Red and play Red. And then, now you've got 2 backups and a 9K body on board that you can then continue to build backups while being able to build forwards at the same time if Tyvis begins to survive. This is really helpful into like aggressive matchups because you're a slow deck and you're wanting to build backups. And if your opponent realizes this, they're going to try and just rush you and kill you as quick as possible. So having things like Tyvis to be able to hopefully hold the line while you build out your backups is super helpful. Um, so yeah, you have your Tyvis, and that allows you to play other warriors too, like Ward and Wuklamot. You would play Wuklamot. Anyways, this card is amazing to play off your Mont Leonis. If you've never gotten to experience playing your Limit Break Mont Leonis to play Zandy and Wuklamot off of the effect, it is a dopamine hit like none other, because you would get, especially usually if you're doing that, I mean, you almost have to be at 7 characters because you need 5 backups to play Mont Leonis. Wuklamot buffs the damage by all your fire forwards by 2k when she's on the board and you have 7 characters. So Mont plays, you play Zandy, you play Wuklamot. Wuklamot does 9,000 damage to something on entry. You go to combat. Well, Zandy also gets to blank an ability, 9k to something. Go to combat. Zandy does 11k to something. And then Wuklamot has haste because of Mont Leonis. She gets to swing and do another 9k to something. It's a board clear. I mean, it's like, if it's not a board clear, you still took 3 of their best forwards off the board, and you're swinging with a lot of good stuff. Yeah, it's just very, very cool. But along this, we're also going to talk about, we have our Terra here. And like I said, Terra is a big piece. Terra is another good 5 cost to be able to play off of your Mont Leonis, allowing you to bring back your Amats, your Bahamut's, or your Ifrits. This Ifrit summon is another one that is really important to the deck. You do 5,000 damage to something, and if you have 5 or more fire characters, you do another 5,000 to something. So it's a 1 cost 10k. So this is essentially the piece that allows you to kind of gain the advantage over your opponent, because they're 9 times out of 10 paying more than 1 CP to put a body on the board. And when you pay 1 to remove it, I mean, that's just good value. Now, if Terra allows you to continuously pull that Ifrit back from the grave, you just constantly 1 CP, 1 CP, 1 CP, remove everything they ever play to the board. They're going to run out of things to play on the board. Terra also has a cool effect on her that your summons can't be removed from the break zone when she's on the field, allowing you to kind of protect these things when they're in the graveyard. So that's kind of the Warriors build. I'm going to go into at the end a little bit of like starting hands, mulligans, how I'd play, my first couple turns with the deck. But in this Warriors build, like I said, you're really looking to curve out your backups and utilize Tyvis to do so. So ideally, like I said, your starting term would be playing an Elwyn or a Naji, searching your Tyvis, playing your Tyvis, free playing Red 13, and then trying to play out your backups from there. Maybe play this Furion to draw you cards to get into your backups more. But that's kind of the game plan of this Mono Fire build with Tyvis. Now, moving on, like I said, there is also a more traditional Mono Fire build. This is a build that does not lean on the Tyvis and the Warriors. It is just playing traditionally good fire cards. You'll see a lot of similarities. a lot of these cards are just really good cards. The Jekt, the Terra, the Cloud, the Zandy, the Wuklamot. Like these cards are just very, very good fire cards. Even the backup line is going to be very similar. The difference is in this build, and you can kind of play around with some stuff here, but the difference in this build is playing things like Ace, which is similar to the Jekt, which we didn't talk about, which is Jekt is a card that costs one less for each fire character you control, and it can become 0. So this can just become a free forward that then fights something when it enters. Ace has that same effect of reduced by 1 for every fire character, can become 0. And then Ace, at the end of each of your turns, deals your opponent a point of damage. So Ace kind of allows you to start dealing damage to your opponent without ever actually swinging and turning your body sideways, allowing you to just kind of turtle up behind a forward that you paid 0 for and start chipping them away with damage so that you can eventually just, they get to damage 5, damage 6, and you just Montleonis, 2 hasty bodies. You have to block these or I win. Some of the things you can also do in these builds is play things like Joshua and the Phoenix. This Phoenix is when it's primed into, you can look at the top 4 cards of your deck and you can add 2 category 16 or fire cards to your hand. Every card in your deck is fire. This card is, and that costs Joshua's 1 CP and it's 3 CP to prime. So you pay 4 to get 4. So it's like, it's essentially a free body. And at its worst, it's a free 8K. At its best, it is hand cycling because you could if you're at 5 backups, you can discard 2 backups, to add 2 forwards to your hand. So at its best, this is just good hand cycling. When you have things like Cloud, which wants to free play specifically category 7 characters, or Zandy, who wants to discard card named Zandy to use this effect again, or even Ace, who has a special, having that hand cycling can be super helpful in just finding the pieces you need somewhere along the way. A card that I've been trying in and out of Warriors builds, but is very good in mono fire decks and absolutely should be in a traditional deck like this is Minwu FFBE, which allows you to choose a card in your break zone. If you have no cards in your hand, you can cast it from your break zone. Now you might be like, well, if you have no cards in your hand, how are you going to cast it? Well, this thing is free. This thing is free. So, like, if you have 6 fire characters on board, Minwu can just play one of these out of your break zone for absolutely nothing, which is super awesome. So this card is very cool to have. But yeah, like I said, most of the shell is very similar. When you're looking at some of these builds, you want to make sure you're keeping enough 5-cost forwards and 3-cost forwards in the deck, 3 or less in the deck, so that your Montleonis hopefully has enough targets when you're ready to play it. Again, it's 5 or less or 3 or less. So you can just play 2, 3 or lesses onto the board. And I would maybe even in this build raise up some other 3 costs, because currently right here you'd only really be looking at playing Wuklamot or Minwu. You don't really want to play Phoenix or Joshua off of your Montleonis, but I mean you can. The final build I kind of wanted to talk about, and this one I feel like hasn't seen as much play recently, but it's still one that I think is really interesting and has seen a lot of play in the past, and that is kind of a more mill strategy. And we've even seen pieces of these builds appear in traditional mono fire builds recently. But let's take a look at it. This is like a little shell I whipped up of what something I'd call a mono fire mill strategy. And the main piece here is our good buddy Zidane. So essentially, you play a really low forward count in these kind of mill-based decks. You play a very much higher 17. You play a much higher summon count, and you can play things like 6-drop Kate Tuna to increase your damage dealt by your fire summons, and Leftia, which increases your damage from fire summons. and you just use your fire summons that are super cheap. Um, if you've got Lefty on K-Tuna on board, this Ifrit is even without paying the extra cost, this is a 1 CP 8K. This thing can be 2 packages of 8,000 damage to something. So like, you just are just not placing bodies on the board, and you are just poking away at their stuff and just, whittling them away to nothing. And then hopefully utilizing the Zidane, because the Zidane gets to rip a card from their hand every turn, and that's not it. I mean, ripping a card is whatever. The key piece is they have to draw a card to replace it. So, and when he enters, he has haste. So like he's repping 2 cards when he enters. So it's kind of this becomes this dilemma of like they don't want to remove it because they don't want you to replay it because that rips 2 more cards from them. But if he stays on the board, he just keeps ripping more cards from them. So, and then you run cards like this Phoenix, which can revive 2 costs fire forwards from your break zone. What's a 2-cost fire forward? Zidane. And you just kind of turtle behind summons while you utilize Zidane to just take cards from your opponent, and you just slow the game down to a crawl. And your goal is not to take them to 7 damage. Your goal most of the time is to just run them out of cards in their deck. It's a very interesting strategy. Again, it's very weird because again, it's not a play style that I feel like it's not a very normal play style to like be like, I'm not playing this to win by damage. So I thought I'd mention it though, because I think it's a really interesting build. So that kind of goes into the 3 kind of builds I would say out there of Mono Fire right now that you can choose from. And they all have their advantages and disadvantages. The Warriors build kind of gives you Tybus to be able to accelerate your plays a little faster. These kind of traditional builds give you more free cast forwards and allow you to play a little more slower play style, but also drawing more cards. And this mill play style kind of gives you a completely different play style where you are just taking a hands-off approach to winning the game, and I'm just removing everything you're doing. You're a very reactionary deck, but that's kind of the way the Mono Fire works. Now let's have a little discussion here. This is you may have noticed in all of my builds, this is a personal preference, but we're going to talk about it. There was not a single light or dark card, and that brings us to our discussion now. Light and dark cards in Mono Fire. This is always an interesting discussion. Should I play light and dark cards in my Mono Fire? That's up to you. I personally hate them. I do not like my hand being clogged up with a card I cannot play. Or well, the problem with light and dark cards is a lot of the times when you draw the light or the dark card, it becomes your play, right? If you draw it early, you want to curve out your backups, but you might have this light or dark card you can't discard for CP, just getting in the way of being able to do what you want to do. So you always got to keep those things in mind. But before I go any deeper into my rant, what kind of light and dark cards do people run? Well, so we'll start with number 1, the exception, which is Luso. Luso is a limit break card. This card is not in your hand, so it's not clogging your hand and not being able to be discarded for CP. This light card is okay. This will always be in your deck because this searches Culinarian, which is a free backup, and you sometimes just need to search backups. And sometimes you would pay any number of CP to search a backup. We love Luso. Now, some other options. Kadaj. Kadaj is an option I see for a dark card, and some people play in their Mono Fire lists. I do like Kadaj. He gives you some good break zone removal, which, outside of the demon is something that Mono Fire doesn't have a lot of, which is break zone removal. So Kadaj kind of fills that hole pretty nicely. Some other cards is Shinryu. Now, there are 2 Shinryus we can talk about here. The more commonly played one is the 5 CP one here. This one is cheaper when your opponent has 3 or more forwards than you do. The special allows you to break all the forwards they control. It is a very good anti-aggro piece, allowing you to they go really wide. Shinryu, he allows you to search a card when he enters. You search a second Shinryu, and you special right off there to clear their board, buy yourself some time. Um, the one thing I don't like about the Shinryu is Shinryu almost instantly requires you to play 2 or 3 Shinryus. So now you've bumped your light count up by 2 or 3. And if I open a hand, if I mulligan into a hand and there's 2 light cards in it, I'm conceding. Like, okay, that might be drastic, but dear God, I don't want that. Um, so that brings us to the other card that you can consider, which is another Shinryu. I like to call this the 369 Shinryu. The 369 Shinryu, another light card, deals 10,000 damage to all the forwards of cost 3, 6, or 9 when it enters. And then every turn, you get to reveal the top card of the deck. And depending on what it is, you either get to do 7k power loss to their board or draw 2 cards. It can be really nice in getting to draw those cards or have untargeted board clear removal if they're playing a lot of 3 costs, which currently 3 costs are a pretty popular number. I don't hate this one. Like I said, it doesn't give you that deck building restriction of needing to run multiple. When talking about the other Shinryu, you can run 1 and 1 of both of these Shinryus. So if you need to special, this one can search the other one and special with it. It's still card named Shinryu, but it gives you the option of both. I just don't like playing multiple light and dark cards in my deck. Like I said, I can't tell you how many games where it has been like, I have always just been like, all I need to do is draw something playable to win the game. And it's like fire card, or light card. And I go, anything but that, please. Holy crap. I just need never mind. I need a fire card. Sometimes sometimes you're top decking and all you need is it doesn't matter. Just draw 2 seed cards you can discard to play Montleonis, right? And if one of them is a light card, now your play is that light card. You were no longer able to play your Montleonis. You were no longer allowed to play, probably the other card in your hand. Like, your play has become the light card by its existence. So this is my rant on why I don't like light or dark cards in a lot of decks unless they have a very, very specific purpose. But like I said, there are good arguments to playing Kadaj or Shinryu or one of these cards. Heck, play Snovlinka in here. I like Snovlinka. I think that's a cool card. But just like I said, just be wary of the fact that they can clog up your hand when this deck, really wants to be able to play its optimal play lines at all times. So now that I'm done on my little rant, I figure we can head on down and I'll probably just sit here. I'll just simulate a couple hands. Like I was going first, going second, and we could talk about, would I keep this hand? Would I mulligan this hand? And what would my first 2 turns maybe look like with that hand? So you can get an idea of what my thought processes are when I'm starting to play this deck. So you have an idea when you start to play the deck, an idea of where to begin. Welcome to the table. All right. So I have a mono fire build together. It is one I've been playing recently at events. And I figure I'll just come here, we'll shuffle it up, and I'll just draw some hands. And we kind of, like I said, we'll talk about, would I keep this hand going first? Would I keep this hand going second? Why I would do so? And then what kinds of things I would do going into my first turn and my second turn, and kind of some thought processes why I would keep cards, why I would discard cards. So now that I've shuffled up here, let's draw our initial hand and get started. So we have a Wuklamat, a Terra, a Jekt, a Naji, and a Tyvis. So the deck wants to give me a difficult one right off the bat. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'd probably keep this hand. It doesn't look glamorous, but I have a backup turn 1 and my Tyvis for turn 2. So I essentially no, plus my Wuklamat for future plays to be able to play off my Tyvis, and my Terra. Now I am probably going to give some of these up, but a lot of times if I can see a guaranteed way to get 2 backups on the board turn 2, I'm probably going to keep that way. I wish this Naji was literally anything else because I already have my Tyvis. You know, if this was a selfie or any 2 CP backup, it's perfect. But still, so we're going to keep this hand going first or second. I think it's fine either way. And we're going to draw for turn. That's interesting. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so that wasn't exactly what I wanted to draw, but I think it still works out. We're just gonna pack our hand with warriors. So we're gonna play this Naji turn 1. And so what are we gonna discard? Well, I'm definitely probably gonna discard this Ject. And at this point, we may just discard the Tyvis and search the second one. We don't need the Ject right now because Ject is only good when we get to like 3 or 4 or 5 characters on board and eventually 6. And we're just nowhere near there. And we're not going to get there anytime soon. So there's no reason to keep cards in your hand that are just not serving a purpose for a long time. So we'll search our Tyvis and I would just pass turn here with your 1 backup on the board. So now we're going to draw for turn. We're going to draw a Culinarian and a human. Now, this got much, much, much better. Oh, I love this. So you have some options here. And where the options would go kind of based on, I would say, what the opponent is playing. And that's why I'm not going to do much more beyond like turn 2, because especially at that point, it depends what your opponent's playing, right? You're a very reactive deck. That's what Mono Fire is. So I would say, let's see what they're playing. But against really aggressive decks, the 9K body of Tyvis can sometimes be enough to stem aggression, right? You know, they're going to try and overwhelm you by any means necessary, even if it means swinging with LB Leos, right? And Tyvis allows you to hopefully stem that aggression. So what we could do here is we'll dull the Naji, and we'll discard probably Wu Clement and Terra. We want to keep our backups. You rarely want to be discarding backups, because you never know if these are the last backups you're going to see. And that is, you know, these cards are awesome. These are really, 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 really good cards. These cards do nothing if you don't get your backups on board. There's no point in keeping this Terra, as amazing as the card is, if we never get our backups on board to begin with. So we'll play our Tyvis and we will get to search a card. Now in this place, I would probably, since we already have the red 13, I would go get a Furion. That way, when we shuffle up, we can use our Tyvis effect. We can free play the red 13, and sit there. And then we would go to our next turn. Now, oh my god, we drew the Culinarian. That's so good. You'd be able to like dull the red 13, discard a card, play the human. You get to draw a card. We do have both the Culinarians, so these get to be free because you have fire backups on the field. 3 or more fire backups, and then Tyvis can free play the Furion. You have 5 more characters, he gets to swing and draw a card. And now you have your 5 backups, you're online. This was kind of a really lucky case because we have both the Culinarians, but and then you're ready to start commanding the board. So let's do another one that hopefully might not be as, but again, it didn't even look ideal at first, right? Like our hand was just a Naji as a backup. But having Tyvis, and we drew the red 13, but even still, having Tyvis to be able to get the Furion to start a draw engine and free play a backup onto the board at the same time is really, really effective. So sometimes it doesn't feel good to pay 5 for a forward on turn 1, but it pays off. It absolutely pays off. And like I said, there's a lot of times in this deck you would pay any CP amount to get a backup out of your deck. So let's draw another hand. We have the Demon, Ject, Mont Blanc, Selfie, and Terra. So again, first or second, I'm keeping this hand no matter what. There are 2 backups here, 2 nice value backups. There is no reason you would ever want to put this hand back. Um, so we could draw for turn, and we have our Furion. So you would start. Honestly, I would start the game by probably discarding Demon Inject and playing the Selfie and add back. We'll say the Demon. I don't think it matters too much here. Both are kind of late game cards. So now the reason I chose to do the Selfie over the Mont Blanc is Mont Blanc can deal 5,000 damage on entry, and that may become relevant on the next turn. Right now, Selfie's just gonna be a 2 CP backup. But maybe they play a Mog off there. They do like a Tyvus Mog next turn to stop you from searching. Mont Blanc can answer that Mog. Maybe they have a, I don't know, a Laswell, right? Like sometimes they're just gonna put out a little body to try and put some aggression on you once they see that you're a mono fire deck, and you want to keep cards that can stem that aggression. So you go to your turn 2, you draw some cards, and look at that. That's kind of perfect. You can discard, play the human, you get to draw a card, and then we're not ready for the Axe Star because we don't have our Tyvus, and we can play the Mont Blanc, maybe deal damage to something. Pass turn on your 3 backups, and then your next turn, look at that. We have our Tyvus. So you can, you know, discard a card, dull the 3, play your Tyvus, go get your red 13. You maybe even, depending on the matchup, you could play your Furion out first instead of the red 13 to get to draw an extra card. Or if you just really feel like getting your backups on board, you can hold this for next turn, play your red 13, and then you're good to go. You know, it's all about building your backups, but also knowing which cards you need to value in keeping in your hand, what cards to discard early, to be able to not only build your backups and hold your backups, but be able to think forwards of like, what could they do to make my life miserable next turn? So let's draw our hand here, and I don't think I need to tell you that you're putting this hand back, whether you're first or second. There's not a single backup in this hand. There's nothing to do in this hand. This hand is garbage. These are hands you sometimes draw in mono fire. So that is a mulligan. Now, this mulligan kind of stinks because you're putting 2 of your Almats on the bottom of your deck. But that is why we play Moody. That's why we play Saz. So we can draw a new 5. And the thing also is now we know that we are much closer to finding our backup. So that's our mulligan, which isn't an ideal mulligan. But we're stuck with it. Now, let's play a game of pretend here real quick before we go back to reality. Say this is your opening hand. I think if I was going first, I would maybe mulligan this hand. I think if I was going second, I would keep this hand. But you always have to remember, maybe, I might even keep this hand going first. I'm not sure. But something you have to always keep in mind is like 3 CP backups to draw a card. You do want to play these on curve. Like playing these on curve feels amazing. But if you discard 2 cards for this, it's essentially a 2 CP backup. Is it ideal? No. But if this was just a 2 CP backup, I'd still be okay, cool. I have a backup to play. See, so like pretend this was, Mont Blanc, like we just saw. Would I keep this hand? Yes, because I could just pitch a card, play it, and then I'm ready for Tyvus next turn, right? So even though I don't have a 2 CP or a 4 CP, this essentially is a 2 CP, even if it doesn't feel great. But this was our mulligan. So let's get back to reality. This was our mulligan. We'll draw for turn. Cool, we got him up. That feels awesome. So we're gonna play this human. And I'm going to choose to discard Terra and Wuklamot for it. Now, hopefully it's obvious, but if it's not obvious to you, let's explain why I would do such a thing. So we want to play our backup, obviously, and we need to discard 2 cards to do it. So evaluating the other cards in our hand, Amat, this is just really good. We just want to be holding this, especially knowing we just put 2 at the bottom of our deck. So we're not going to see another one unless we search it. And this is just a good answer if they're playing like Wool 7 and you really just want to stop the aggression to Amat their Wool 7, or this is just really we want to hold on to this. Tyvis is our turn 2 play. At the moment, this is the only other backup in sight, is being able to play Tyvis and search red 13. So we've already, these 2 cards we absolutely want to keep. Finally, we have these. So we need to we get to keep one of these cards that isn't human. And so I'm going to choose to keep Zandy. Now, why am I going to choose to keep Zandy? This card's like a catch-all, right? Like, this is a good anti-aggro piece. You get to remove all the abilities on the board and then just tear something off the board. So Zandy is a good anti-aggro piece, and it's good to just kind of hold on to Zandy because we're on turn 1. We don't know what our opponent is playing yet. So Terra, we don't have any summon. Our only summon is a Mott, but we're just not in a position to pay 5 to get a summon back and then cast it. Wuklmot will be good in the future, but you need 5 or 7 characters. So these 2 cards are just not, they're too late game for what we're going to do. So we're going to play our human, we're going to draw a card, and we're going to pass to our opponent. And now we're going to it's going to come back to us, and we're going to draw for turn. And we haven't drawn anything too amazing here, you know? So this is where, again, having that Tyvis engine helps a lot in being able to play Tyvis. We get to search a warrior out of our deck. And again, this is going to be 9 times out of 10 your play. It's just searching red, playing red. This allows you to get another backup out of your deck and onto the board. And then, you know, maybe next turn we draw for turn. And look at that. We got a selfie. So now we can dull 2, discard a card. We can play the selfie. She gets to add something back. I'd probably grab a Wuklmot since there's 2 of them in there. And then we can free play our Culinarian. And now we're ready to go, you know? So Tyvis just kind of helps you get there. Now, remember that you don't have to play the card you search. So in a case where, say, this was my hand. Oh, where'd my human go? You know, this was my hand starting the turn. You can do this, discard 2, play the Tyvis, and you can search Naji, which gets you another backup, but then free play the red, right? So in that scenario, you have your 3rd backup ready for the next turn. So just kind of keep plays like that in mind when it comes to Tyvis. So that's just kind of, I thought a cool thought experiment we could try and do is kind of give you a mindset into how I would evaluate some hands and discards, because not only is knowing what to keep and what to put back important, but also knowing what to discard and what to keep in your first couple turns is important in kind of surviving those initial turns with Mono Fire. So that is going to do it for my little yap session on Mono Fire. I think you should give this deck a try. It's a really fun deck. It definitely takes some getting used to the kind of play lines and the play style of being so slow and methodical and controlling. But it is a very, I find it to be a very rewarding play style and a very rewarding deck. It rewards the skill of knowing your matchups, knowing your deck, knowing when's the best time to push, when to not push. You know, you'll find turns where your opponent has no forwards on the board. You've got a couple of bodies on your board, and you may just draw for turn and pass to your opponent because you know you can't risk any X burst yet. You're still ahead of the game. You can answer what they're going to do. There will be a opportunity to attack later. And sometimes that takes a lot of getting used to and a lot of skill, knowing when to hold back and not swing even when you feel like you're ahead. Yeah, let me know what you think, and if you try Mono Fire or if you've tried in the past, you know, how you feel about it in this current meta, and you know, what you really love about playing the deck, or how much you love playing Mont Leonis into giving Wuklmot. It's so good. Yeah, I hope you give Mono Fire a shot, and yeah, until the next one, friends, take care, everyone.